Hello everyone, my name is Krastimira Stekova and this is my research to practice project for Education 590. My topic is social emotional learning and I was especially interested in finding out how can we incorporate social emotional learning as a main object and a driving force to improve academic success and the overall well-being of students. Post-pandemic, the social-emotional level of students, according to research, has been very low and students have had challenges in establishing relationships and creating a positive self-image. How can we use social-emotional learning as a driving force for creating relationships, academic success, and overall well-being? Not just including social-emotional learning as a little part of our curriculum, but actually relying that curriculum on that tool and making sure that we make it part of our everyday practice. I am planning to implement the social-emotional learning by incorporating a few different strategies. For example, social emotional learning, I believe, should be a part of the regular classroom management, not just a separate strategy, something that we can come by to when we need it, but something that could take place every day in the classroom as part of our classroom management. Everybody knows that successful classroom management is the foundation for a successful learning process. If we include social emotional learning and creating those relationships into the morning routines and morning work, while we do student checking, while we do games, while we do questions and discussions, and just kind of like guide students through developing the ability to work together, think together, relate to one another, and show empathy and participate. I believe if we do all of this bonding activities as part of the classroom management would be a great strategy to implement for successful social emotional learning. Also, I believe that just like I mentioned in my SWOT analysis, extending social emotional learning programs and anything really that takes place in school into the home and establishing that valuable connection and partnership between the schools and families is essential for a successful learning process. Many times, what we're doing in school at school is not followed up by parents and families at home. It almost seems like students are having different lives. One of them is at home and the other one is at school. That's why extending these programs to the community, educating parents, making this important connection and establishing these partnerships between families and school to help the social emotional learning process of students would be definitely beneficial, not only to their learning process, but to establishing their future goals and for overall well-being. We started, especially for the new teachers who started working during the pandemic, a lot of the trainings that have taken place prior to the pandemic are not very relevant to what's been going on in the schools now. For an example, I've earned my credential in 2020 and I started working right away. I was hired by a district right away and started working as a music teacher. All of my student teaching has taken place in a physical classroom, and suddenly I was faced with all virtual reality, teaching students how to play instruments. All training that I have received and professional development was irrelevant as there was an emotional barrier and a screen between me and my students. Then we came back this past fall in person, full-time. And again, I feel like not only new teachers, but well-seasoned teachers were not properly trained on social emotional learning and how that could be beneficial to students, how that could be incorporated in everyday teaching, along with ongoing professional developments to implement relevant social emotional strategies for a successful learning process. So I feel that if we implement social emotional strategies into the professional development and training of teachers, it would be a very beneficial to students and it would be a recipe for a successful teaching and learning process. Also planning to implement to maximize social emotional benefits, for example, through music, the art, and extracurricular activities. In two of my resources in my literature review, I've pointed out that music, academic success, and overall well-being of students are very closely connected, especially at the middle school years or the high school, when students are really building those social emotional relationships and bonds with others. They thrive when they have that little community and support, and it is very beneficial for the overall learning and success of the students. I believe if more students from very early age, especially in elementary education, have access to these extracurricular activities, the benefits of the skills learned and practiced in those extracurricular activities would definitely transfer to everyday curriculum and learning on daily basis. Curriculum without implemented social emotional learning is just not going to work post-pandemic. As everything shut down in the spring of 2020, and our students had to adjust to a completely different way of learning and virtual reality, a lot of relationships were either shattered or not existent, and students could only communicate through a screen. There wasn't that one-on-one communication. There wasn't that kind of a personal belonging and the driving force behind, friendships and taking others' perspectives and, recognizing different situations and building a character. None of this was existing. So without social emotional learning, students are actually facing challenges in their interactions with others, completing assignments, and also expressing their needs and feelings. Without social emotional learning, students cannot develop positive growth mindset. They cannot communicate effectively or participate actively in resolving conflicts, managing their emotions, or identifying and using stress management strategies. So really, without social emotional learning, students are limited as to how they receive information, retain information, and how they're learning altogether. Again, the lack of relationships. I have listed multiple sources in my research that when students don't develop these relationships, they're not able to develop their identity. They're not aware. They do not develop the social awareness and, eventually responsible decision making. And we need to care for students' well-being and learning. So I believe that one of the important impacts is lack of relationships and developing the skills that come with that. Another impact of curriculum without implementing social emotional learning would be the overall opportunity for teachers to be able to assist students in developing their personal and academic goals. With national shortage of certificated and substitute teachers, there's little to no opportunity for trainings once again, and this is really a lack of the opportunity to implement social emotional learning. And when we don't train the teachers, then this could not be taught to the students, and there is just this kind of a snowball where a lot of social emotional skills, social emotional needs are not met. Therefore, this could affect the overall learning process, academic achievement, and well-being of students. An indicator for success would be improving the overall communication skills of students and their participation and engagement in the learning process. When students don't need to see as many therapists, when students are not sent to the principal office because they act out that often, when students are content in the classroom and are really able to process their emotions and work through different situations, then we know the social emotional learning is working. Another indicator for success would be the test scores. When they improve and the academic success, they achieve academic success, they have better either iReady or test scores. We know they're learning, we know they're retaining information, but we also know that a lot of the learning process is based on relationships and the way students learn from and with one another. This is a great indicator that students are socially and emotionally stable and mature, so they could focus on the learning process and use critical thinking. And another measure indicator for success of social emotional learning would be when students just develop self-worth and character, when they feel valued and develop a healthy self-image. Students demonstrate positive attitudes and growth mindset. They develop a relationship and reflect on each other's role in participation in the process. They're able to evaluate personal and interpersonal and community relationships and aspects. They're demonstrating personal and collective agency. Then we know that social emotional learning really is benefiting learning, and it's really helpful to students. And why making social emotional learning a priority? Well, what was lacking during the pandemic, now we have the opportunity to develop to its fullest potential. Students can develop self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. All of these aspects are helping them grow a character, develop self-image, and help for their decision-making, well-being, and overall academic achievement. Curriculum alone does not foster development of a character, self-worth, quality relationships, and societal belonging. Social emotional learning helps students develop those healthy identities and make responsible and caring decisions. Also, SEL is foundational to the success of the young people. Therefore, it is essential to the success of our society. Social emotional learning promotes growth mindset, which is a fundamental skill for students learning from elementary school age all through college, and is an important skill to develop to be able to follow curriculum and just really face challenges in a positive and growth mindset. And last but not least, social emotional learning helps students develop a healthy mindset, set boundaries and personal goals, and really be able to make the difference between what is right, what choices they have, and how they express their personality in a healthy way.